Our story begins with our protagonist, AMC Leo, gritting his teeth and slamming his fist down in anger. He was an unemployed gamer, Sakurada, and it is a significantly dangerous B-level dungeon. Leo knows that the bonus is good, but because the layout is complex and the Suzuko had absorbed the Quilo's ability, and to his surprise, the Quilo began to glow. He warned her to be careful and stay away from it, but then, a powerful explosion ripped through the apartment building, completely shattering it. Meanwhile, this occurred 24 hours after the Black Forest manifested. To manifest in Naru City, Luca attempted to reassure the citizens and quell their fear. He asserted that he knew the enemy's weaknesses, and he emphasized that, as a beta tester, everyone was required to follow his commands. However, when the building crumbled, panic erupted, and the people scattered, Lucas confronted a rank 2 monster. One person questioned what the creature was, and another asked what they should do, as it appeared different from any they had encountered before. Luca attempted to defuse the situation by explaining that there was a way to confront it. He took a deep breath and shouted, "Job Holder." Someone leaped from the building and he charged at the Quilo, striking it and shattering the ground. As the dust settled, a woman stood triumphantly over the defeated Quilo, the jurist. Rank F, Is Miki, confidently inquired if it was a rank 2 Quilo and assured everyone that it would be an easy challenge. Lucas mirrored her confidence, recalling the citizens to follow his orders for an easy victory. The people cheered, grateful that he had died, which made Miki realize that Luca was skilled at swaying people. She couldn't believe she had only known him for a day. Miki then recalled being cornered by high clearance difficulty. No one has been able to clear it since it appeared, and although he couldn't overcome it either, he managed to escape and become the Quilo, and questioned Luca, asking who he was and why he had assisted her. Luca explained that he was gathering allies to cleanse the Glow dungeon, and that he considered a worker like her to be especially valuable. He introduced himself as a beta tester and asked if she was interested in becoming a hero with him. However, Miki had her doubts, since she couldn't imagine an ordinary salaryman like Luca becoming a hero. Furthermore, she realized that it was a rank F dungeon, and the monsters were getting stronger, which made her doubt how easily Luca had suggested overcoming it. At the top of the tree, Suzuko excitedly declared that it was fun and amazing. She asked Leo if they could do it again, but he replied that he had had quite enough fun for one day. He acknowledged that Suzuko had saved him, but at the rate he was going, he could end up dead. Suddenly, he heard Luca shout to the people that if they wanted to clear the dungeon, they needed to follow his orders. Seeing Luca as he was 10 years prior, Leo realized that Luca had been a novice at the time, but he was skilled nonetheless. He considered that teaming up with Luca to clear the dungeon might not be such a bad idea. They felt a powerful vibration, and Leo anxiously asked Suzuko what was causing it. She replied that it was food, pointing to the coup climbing the tree and considering them to be tasty. Leo couldn't believe that the coup were climbing the tree like that. The people on the ground were puzzled by the tree's strange behavior. Player. However, he didn't awaken a class that would determine his role in that world, so he has been stuck working as a guide there for years. Miki thought that the citizens were exaggerating, but Luca warned that things were not looking good at all. They watched as the tree slowly broke, and Luca called to. Miki yelled at him to run, but unfortunately, the tree fell before he could escape. When the smoke cleared, Leo realized that he was still alive and felt a soft sensation. However, Miki called him a hoodlum and pointed a sharp dagger at him, warning him to stop moving. Fearful, Leo claimed that it was just a small accident. She pulled him off of her chest, asking if he had fallen from the tree and scolding him. Leo tried to explain that it had been a coincidence since he had been nearby. However, Suzuko stomped the ground, asking, where was he, and where did Miki go? He questioned what was happening, but then Yusuke appeared in front of them and announced that he had found him, surprising both of them. Leo was about to step into action, but Miki activated her power, declaring that she would handle the situation and protect him from the monster, asserting that heroes don't, they run from danger. Leo was left confused after Miki finished preparing her weapon. He looked at Suzuko and tauntingly dared her to approach, leaving Leo to wonder about the unexpected turn of events. He realized that Miki had mistaken Suzuko for an enemy. Miki jumped toward a confused Suzuko. Miki used her ability, trapping Suzuko inside. Leo shouted a warning to be careful about what. A man praised everyone for their efforts, and Luca, a B-rank jurist, told them to continue exploring. Luca asked him about his current situation, and he surprised Suzuko. Miki thought she had Suzuko trapped, but Suzuko simply patted her on the side and excitedly asked Leo if he had been worried about her. Leo smiled, knowing he wasn't worried about Suzuko. He rushed over to where Mickey had fallen, asking if she was all right. Well, and hoping she wasn't dead, he was relieved to find Mickey was only unconscious. Leo scratched his head, contemplating what to do. Suzuko asked if she could eat Mickey, but Leo firmly told her not to eat people. He carefully picked up Mickey, thinking that, if he remembered correctly, she was a jurist from Luca's party. He considered that if he saved her, Luca might let him join the party without any problems. However, he realized that it would work if they found out about Suzuko. Leo asked Suzuko for a favor, to hide for a while. Suzuko asked him why, and Leo responded, asking her the same question, then promised to treat her to something delicious if she hid well and looked for tasty things to eat. Suzuko enthusiastically agreed, and he disappeared immediately. Leo sweetly told her that he would find her some treats, so she should be a good girl and wait patiently. The system then indicated to him that the effects of the curse had weakened significantly, leading him to understand that the curse had diminished, possibly because Suzuko was hidden. He contemplated the situation, thinking that if that were the case, he would keep Suzuko hidden, have Luke find the boss, and then have Suzuko responded that they were in an ideal position. He then explained that the area between Sadab-ori and the city center only has weak monsters and is rich in defeat the boss. A moment later, Mickey woke up and sat up, feeling a pain in his head. Leo assured him that he was awake now and expressed her relief that he was all right. Mickey asked what had happened to the monster, and Leo told her that it had escaped somewhere thanks to her help. He respectfully referred to Mickey as Big Sister. Confused, Mickey admitted that she didn't remember everything clearly, but acknowledged that it had been dangerous. He suggested that they go somewhere safe, and Leo smiled, thinking that everything was going according to his plan. Mickey asked him his name, and knowing that they would eventually find out Suzuko's name, Leo decided to use a fake name for the time being. He introduced himself as Ecumene and asked her name in return. She revealed that her name was Ayase Mickey and invited him to call her Mickey. She offered him her hand, which he accepted, expressing that it was a pleasure to meet her. Suzuko watched them. He felt a familiar sensation. Leo quietly called out to Suzuko and gestured for her to follow him discreetly so he could find food. Suzuko agreed without hesitation. Mickey reminded Leo not to get separated, and he assured her that he would stay close. Suzuko silently followed behind him. Later, in an abandoned building, Luca requested a mission report and inquired about the progress of Teams 3 and 4 in their search for Mickey. A member of the team reported that they were still looking for her. Luca wondered what Mickey was doing and urgently demanded that they hurry up and find her, acknowledging that resources, so they can obtain profits. Luca smiled and suggested heading to the central area, clearing the B-rank dungeon of a. Without her, the entire group could have been wiped out. The team member assured him that they would find her and asked him to calm down. However, the truth was, Luca was more concerned about Mickey's extraordinary abilities and silently prayed for her safety. Suddenly, Mickey entered the room. Mickey entered the building with Leo and greeted Luca. Luca excitedly got up and gave him a warm welcome. He asked Mickey if the boy next to him was his younger brother, but Mickey clarified that he wasn't her brother, even though she had saved him from a dangerous situation. Suzuko playfully told Leo that only her dad could see her. Leo greeted Luca and introduced himself as Imjin, concealing his true identity and implying that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. Leo asked Luca if he could join their group, and Luca welcomed him, saying he could join because he was with Mickey. However, Luca, he couldn't help but find Leo's expression seriously unsettling, which aroused his suspicions and made him want to learn more about Leo's identity. Luca, he decided to use his unique analysis skill. Luca's ability began to analyze Leo, while Leo was asking if there was anything he could help him with. While Luca's ability was analyzing Leo, it encountered an unknown factor in its analysis. Luca stroked Leo's head and commented that it was good to see him so motivated. He introduced himself as the boss. However, Luca's ability still couldn't identify Leo. Leo responded, while Luca, only this time, he was nervous because he didn't want to risk his life, but Luca insisted. Confidently, he told Luca to wait and explained to him not to panic, was wondering why he couldn't see any information about him, and all the tests he performed on him failed. Luca praised Leo for his efforts and suggested that you see, Leo was confused. But then the system issued a warning. Lucas realized that the system had failed every time and was unable to determine Leo's identity. Suddenly, Lucas felt a pain in his head and saw Suzuko behind Leo, warning him not to look at Leo. Leo then asked if Lucas was okay, and Lucas screamed in fear, remaining silent for a moment while staring at Leo. Mickey asked Lucas what was wrong, and Suzuko told Leo that she had just scared Lucas a little, making Leo realize that Suzuko was the cause of it. Then they heard a loud noise that startled them all. Lucas panicked and asked about the loud noise. As he began to walk towards the source of the sound, an explosion occurred right in front of them. Luca couldn't believe the factory had exploded and wondered what was going on. One of the men shouted that the tree was moving, and Suzuko asked if they should run. However, Leo whispered to her, telling her to wait, and keeping his ability of detection active, he noticed that the monsters were agitated and wondered what had excited them. Then he noticed the fire on the wall and shouted for everyone to listen to him. He told them to stay away from the fire because rank 3 wooden Jai were approaching. A monster slowly emerged from the fire, and it's not just any ordinary B-rank dungeon. With information about the central area being only 10 years old, she believed it was impossible for her to clear it. A timber Jai with rank 3 abilities, launching its roots to attack them. Everyone screamed in horror. Lucas was surprised to see a timber Jai of ranked 3rd. He wondered how Leo knew, especially since Leo was relentless and so well informed. This made Luca consider whether Leo possessed Salvador potential. He imagined Leo mocking him, suggesting he could defeat him and calling him an old man. He wondered if Leo had deliberately tested him, and intended to make a fool of him in order to take his place as leader. The system showed Luca that Salvador's bonus for defeating the Black Forest boss had increased to 10,800, confirming his suspicion that Leo was planning to become the leader and claim the bonus. Luca felt a certain way, thinking about the new player protection period that only allowed 1 Salvador per dungeon. He swore to make Leo regret having flighty. He entered his dungeon and yelled at the others to follow his commands. He ordered them to initiate a counterattack. Mickey warned Luca to be careful, but it was too late. The lumbering Jai attacked Luca and the others head-on with its roots, triggering a powerful explosion. Fortunately, Mickey protected Leo while telling him that they could no longer trust Luca and the others. He pointed out that she was also reaching her limit and advised him to get everyone out while he still could. Mickey hugged him tightly and asked if he understood, to which Leo replied yes. However, Leo found it strange that first, they needed to gather information about the monsters that were there. Suddenly, a hand shot out towards him, surprising him. He stood still and did his. Wooden Yakai continued to evolve despite the curse weakening, while a swarm of flaming Jai approached them. Mickey she pushed Leo behind her and urged him to run. Leo hesitated, finding it difficult to flee, even when ordered. However, Suzuko, who, having been hiding using his ability, he could no longer resist his hunger. He revealed himself and shouted for sweets, then rushed towards the approaching Jai, who was approaching. Mickey was surprised to see the same monster as before, and watched Suzuko enjoying all of his barbecued grilling. He watched as Suzuko devoured the Jai, on fire, while Leo scolded her for being more interested in food than her own well-being. Leo was worried that the curse would become stronger again. The system revealed a new skill called synchronization, which allowed him to temporarily obtain a skill from saved monsters for 20 minutes. With a limit of 4 uses per day, Leo considered his condition, not realizing that he only possessed 1 ability, and wondered if other monsters would see him as their father. They would see him as their dad. However, he believed that ordinary monsters were likely too simple-minded to recognize him in that way. He reflected on whether he could control the boss of the Black Forest, and if doing so, would break the curse, just as he contemplated his next move. Someone grabbed his shoulder. It was Mickey, warning him of the danger and urging him to reconsider. Leo had a different plan in mind, explaining to Mickey that while the job, Luca even called him useless. Unemployed and sweating nervously, he apologized to Luca, but eventually released his grip, indicating that he was giving him monsters were distracted. He would attempt to defeat the boss. He recognized that it was a risky gamble, but he believed it was his best opportunity. Leo also suggested that Luca might know the boss's location, and with the continually evolving wooden Jai, they needed to act quickly. Mickey agreed, He agreed with his plan, scooped him up in his arms, and ran swiftly, telling him to hold on tight. Meanwhile, in the underground ruins of Naru City, a monstrous, long-haired woman sweetly declared that she had found him, referring to Leo as her daddy. On the other hand, Lucas was facing the excited boss, and told everyone that, considering how fast those plants were growing and the strong floral scent, it had to be the boss, which made everyone shouted, saying they knew they could count on Luca. But Luca thought, while the lumberjai are concentrated below, I'll sneak in and defeat the boss. They will realize that the little shrimp is Leo, but suddenly some of them clutched their heads in pain, making Lucas wonder what the hell was going on. Then he saw how some people's eyes began to turn green, and they transformed into monsters, causing the others to panic and go into shock, panic, and ask what was happening, questioning if this was even supposed to be a level F dungeon. He told them not to panic. Endo knew that he had to. They had to remain calm, and he told them that the difficulty was only increasing slightly, so they should continue onward. One of the men asked him worriedly if they even had a. Today, his entire party had been wiped out, because the system kept warning him about something unknown. He immediately looked. Special treatment because he had experience in escaping. He agreed and suggested that they head to the central area, although in his mind, he was planning to wait for an opportunity, possibility, reminding him that they had been defeated even against the rank 3 wooden job. He became enraged upon hearing this and cut off the man's head, wondering how that man dared to give orders to the savior, and he thought that man was a fool. The system notified Luca that he had reached the job owner level. The NPC subjugation bonus is 1,300 experience points. In addition, the job acquisition level is available, and the system asked if he would like to acquire the card of work. People were surprised by his actions and asked him what he had done, but he was only thinking that the bonus for defeating the logger Jackie was about M0, but he received 1,000 for killing an NPC. No one knows that he can't subdue the boss and earn his bonus, so he figures if that's the case, he'll just earn points from all of them. A moment later, Leo was about to ask Luca something, but she understood what he was going to ask and agreed with him. Then he told him that he could undoubtedly see the traces of the battle. Suddenly, someone shouted that Luca had lost his mind, so they had to run, which made him surprised, and Mickey immediately ran towards the source of the voice. She was shocked to see a pile of corpses on the ground, and Luca, holding a dead man in his hand. She called out to him, yelling and asking what he was doing, but he simply looked at her calmly and told her to stay away, to face her while telling her that she was wrong. Furious, she reminded him that he had promised that they would all clear the dungeon together, but he was. To escape, however, a sword was pointed at his face, and Luca seriously questioned him about any ulterior motives. He knew what would happen if he didn't lead the way, killing allies, and she told him he had lost his mind. He retorted that they were the ones who had gone crazy, and asked her if she couldn't smell the scent of Flores. She asks him what's wrong with them, and he replies that if she breathes in their scent, she'll become the boss's subordinate, which is why he's destroying them. Then, he raised his sword and gave it to her, telling her that he was also a subordinate, so she had to kill him. She asked him worriedly how he had become one, and if they couldn't defeat the boss together, but he shouted that it was impossible. Still, she asked him if he wasn't a burr, a chaster, and if he didn't know of another way. Then, she told him that he shouldn't give up. He told her that if she didn't kill him, there was another way. She asked him what it was, and he replied that he would kill her, and then he launched an attack against her. He stabbed the sword into her stomach, pinning her to the ground. He mockingly told her that she was nothing more than an NPC, and asked her how she dared to give him. Following his advice, the protagonist stabbed him harder in the stomach with the sword, telling him that he shouldn't have expected anything. He explained that he had saved her because he wanted a high-level death for him. He told him that he was a bad person, and that he could at least fulfill one last function. Then, he activated his work card, and the system asked him if he wanted to forcefully steal a job card from the still-living target, which he agreed to. The system then began to forcefully extract the work card. A moment later, he obtained Mickey's role job and shouted that it was incredible to have an S-level job. A trembling, worthless nobody raised his hand and agreed to lead the march. Fully aware that his situation was grim, Luca. But then, someone called Mickey's name sweetly, telling him to stay awake, which surprised Lucas and made him wonder what. It must have been that voice, but when he looked back, he only saw Leo asking what all the commotion was about. When Leo saw him, he asked Lucas if he had arrived at a bad time. Lucas replied that it was the perfect time and asked him what he wanted. Leo, feeling uncomfortable, asked Lucas what he was talking about, but Lucas told him that it was useless to play dumb and that he was a better actor than him. Then Lucas mockingly told him not to be so tense. Noticing that Lucas was behaving strangely, he felt bad for Mickey, but decided to get out of there because he knew that where there's life, there's hope. Suddenly, Lucas used his ability while telling him that he wasn't going anywhere and that he had locked him in with his power. He realized that it was a physical manifestation of will, a precursor to awakened work, which made him wonder how Luca knew considering Luca doesn't have a job. He was sure that Luca was trying to usurp the position, but to think he wouldn't notice Mickey's level of skill was stupid. He wondered what Luca was referring to, and he was surprised to hear that Mickey's level was so high because it was news to him. Luca told him that the reason the dungeon had changed was because they had both spent time being called saviors, and he asked if the difficulty had increased. He was surprised to hear that Luca, he sheathed his sword and turned around, clearly annoyed, saying that he had dirtied his hand. Other players who had witnessed the exchange is a time jumper and knows that there are all kinds of time jumpers. Weirdos who save people just for fun, brutes who kill people virtuously, heroes who sacrifice themselves for others, nutcases who have fun in dungeons, and rare players who are, essentially, walking calamities. His abilities are shrouded in mystery, and if Luca is one of these rare players, then everything makes sense. Luca inquired about his objective state and whether it was a business deal or perhaps a straightforward advantage, but he knew that Luca would ultimately kill him, so he needed to stall for time until Suzuko arrived. He put his hand to his head and told Luca that he was surprised he had seen through his deception. Then he admitted to Luca that he was right and that everything had been his doing. Luca replied that now they were finally being honest with each other and revealed that he had snuck into another savior's dungeon when it opened, causing its configuration to change, difficulty, as well as the bonus value. Luca told him he should be very happy that his plan was going well, which made him smile as he thought that Lucas believed everything he said, so he planned to act conscientiously. Then he laughed and asked Luca if he shouldn't thank him, because thanks to him, that dungeon was even more exciting. Luca agreed that it was intriguing and that the bonus had already changed, but he just smiled, thinking that Luca was an idiot. Suddenly, Mickey angrily called Leo and asked if they were in on this together. Then he told them that they were both crazy. Luca kicked, mocked him, calling him pathetic, and reminding him that, as an unemployed player, he should know better than to talk back to B-rank Luca. Later, Mickey's face and angrily told him to shut his mouth, but Leo was frustrated that even Mickey took him seriously. Luca obtained a card, level work, and you're already crying like that. He was also surprised by the power of a job. Luca thinks that, compared to waiting to wake up, stealing is a piece of cake, and it's a mysterious experience. Leo asks Lucas if they will cooperate from now on, but suddenly they hear a loud scream that startles Lucas. He is surprised at seeing a swarm of possessed beings in Quillos rushing towards him, making him ask Leo what he has done. Luca asks him if he wants him to cooperate with the one who summoned the monsters. Just as he was about to answer, Lucas burst out laughing and shouted that, in the end, that was the best idea a child could come up with. Then Lucas jumped towards him and grabbed a spear to attack, taking him by surprise. Luca mockingly told him that there was absolutely no way he would work with someone like him. Luca attacked, creating a powerful explosion. The smoke gradually cleared, revealing Suzuko pinning Luca to the ground as he yelled at her to release him. He demanded she stop, proclaiming that he was the savior and she should release him immediately, but she told Luca that she didn't need a savior and that she had come to look for her father. Luca was surprised to hear this and stared at her, feigning disbelief. Confidently, he told Luca that he was Suzuko's dad, which enraged Luca, who shouted that he would cooperate and work with him, but then Suzuko forcefully slammed Luca against the ground. They reached their destination, and Luca asked if this was the central area, but he silently called Luca an idiot in his mind, knowing they were in a nest area, angrily shouting that her daddy was not a boy. Then she released Luca to tell him that she was sleepy and asked if they could go to bed. He replied, sure, but he said he needed to take care of those guys first, pointing to a swarm of monsters behind them. She replied, okay, and began devouring the monsters. While Leo wondered just how many of those monsters were there, he figured the good thing was that they hadn't run into the boss yet, but decided that for now, they should get out of there. She asked Mickey if he was okay, but he responded like a crazy person, confusing her and making her wonder what was wrong. Past. Suddenly, a huge shadow appeared behind him, and Suzuko called out to him. Suzuko gently grabbed him and asked if he was finished yet, but Suzuko simply hugged him and lay down on the floor, saying she was sleepy and that she would protect her daddy, so he should stay with her. She hit, trying to wake Suzuko by touching her forehead, but she wouldn't wake up. He realized something was also wrong with Suzuko, and he wondered why, how he was going to protect her while she was sleeping. He also noticed that the monsters were no longer active, and even his curse had suddenly disappeared. Suddenly, someone told him that by not being affected by her, he proved why that girl called him dad. He was surprised to realize that he was the head of the Black Forest, and and the system showed him that the synchronization had randomly selected the monster's ability, the C-rank advanced boss, Whisper Flower. He, of monsters, and planned his escape during the chaos that would erupt once the battle commenced. Suddenly, one of the players called out to Luca, and they noticed that, laughed at him, saying that they were both his prey. He activated his ghost transformation for 20 minutes and avoided the path of the Whisper Flower, which was grabbing the... A sleeping Suzuko knew that he could escape, but Suzuko herself could not. Then, Whisper Flower told him that he couldn't escape either, which surprised him. Whisper Flower explained to him that the plants surrounding them were her eyes, and that the fragrance of the flowers he inhaled was also a part of her. He became frustrated when he realized that he wouldn't be able to escape, and asked her what she was looking for. But she simply told him to look at Suzuko because Suzuko was beautiful when she was still, charming and strong like her, and that she was also picky about food. He asked her if her goal was to eat Suo, and he thought that she had been after Suo from the beginning, and not him. She told him that she had already eaten Suo's eye before, and had gained intelligence. Furthermore, she has. We must continue to evolve to regain its favor. He asked her if she was referring to a human, but she angrily told him not to dare insult him*, because he is not like him, and he is the creator of Mon, the god of monsters. So he, who only possesses a single monster, is nothing more than an imposter. He wondered what she meant by imposter, and was surprised that she knew he was a guardian. Whisper Flower told him that Suzuko is her daughter, and, yet, Suzuko calls him dad, and even grants him powers. She then laughed while telling him that she couldn't believe he was manipulating a monster, and asked him. A rank B monster was approaching them. It growled, advancing towards the group, and the players were surprised by their large number. However, Luca, if he wanted to imitate him*, he told her that the reason he was made to keep monsters was for their food, and asked her why she hadn't said so earlier. She smiled and told him that, just as she'd hoped, he was intelligent, and if he became her slave, he wouldn't have to die. Laughing, he told her that it was a tempting offer. Then he raised a finger and told her that he rejected her offer. Floor whispered, laughed at him, and attacked, telling him that he had no say in the matter. Her roots passed through him, making it easy for him to hold on to them. The system shows him that he has 10 minutes left of his ghost transformation. He knows this is bad because the time for his ability is running out, and he needs to awaken his succubus somehow. She orders her monster to capture him and bring him to her alive. Then, the possessed Quiquilos run towards him, making him grit his teeth in frustration. He runs alongside them, while wondering if there's another way. He remembers Mickey's job card, and figures that if Luca was able to use it, he should be able to as well. So he picks the card up off the ground and acquires it. But the system indicates that job awakening is not available. Worried, he wonders if he's being tricked. Then, his ghost transformation expires, and he sees monsters charging toward him, but he knows he can't give up yet. He activates synchronization, and the system indicates to him that he activated the ghost transformation, Eye of Truth, Monster Eater. Whisper asks him if he's trusting Suzuko's abilities again, and yells at him, confidently unleashed his firepower, instructing everyone to remain calm as he employed his formidable fire magic to eliminate them, that she won't allow it. She attacks him with the eye on her chest, causing him to feel dizzy, and his synchronization is blocked too. Monsters grab him as he screams in pain, feeling his synchronization being forcibly severed. Whisper tells him to fall into a deep sleep and die. Within his memories, he sweats, wondering if this is Whisper's true form, as he observes her with his Eye of Truth. She tells him that her body is his, and she calls him a slave. The system congratulates him for discovering the hidden secret of the deep world, spiritual corruption, depth 1. He knows that spiritual corruption is exclusive to higher-level dungeons, and he wonders if this really was just an F-rank dungeon, because its calamity is something else entirely. He remembers that in his previous life, he was killed by Suzuko, leading him to wonder if he's going to die because of Suzuko again this time, and if meeting her is either good luck or misfortune. But then he sees himself somewhere else, which surprises him and makes him realize that he is not. He is dead. He also notices that the screen is still active, which makes him wonder where he is. Suddenly, he hears someone shout that it's a masterpiece, and he realizes that the sound is coming from the door behind him. He grabs the doorknob and opens the door. Then he sees a man shouting that it is truly his greatest masterpiece. He notices that the scene before him is blurry, and he wonders if it's a projected memory. The man shouts that they should, the monsters, reminding the players that they were merely rank B creatures, which made victory easier to achieve. Leo was astonished by Luca's strength, rejoice in his new existence, and unite their will with his. Then, the man orders something on the paper to rise before him, making him wonder if the man has a severe obsession, bordering on madness, because it reminds him of his past self, desperately crying out for something to appear, and he proudly proclaims it his greatest creation. Teacher, something emerges from the paper on the floor, and the man gently coaxes it to come out, visibly sweating and anxious. A girl slowly materializes from the paper, and Suzuko, he asks the man what she is. The man tells her that she will be called Suzuko, which confuses her. The man then asks her to hold his hand, and she complies. Then, the man embraces her, telling her that from now on, she should call him Dad, to which she agrees, and sweetly calls him Papa. Leo grows frustrated, imagining Suzuko's true form, and questions whether that girl is actually Suzuko. He tells himself to calm down, thinking that, in other words, he is still within acceptable boundaries. Memories of Suzuko flood in, and he realizes that Suzuko is drastically different. He overhears the man telling her that she is her father's great masterpiece, and asks her if she is ready. The man pats Suzuko's head, and she, confused, asks what she should be prepared for. The man responded that she must be prepared to join her father and save the world, and then they both disappeared, shocking him and making him realize that there was very little information. He wondered what that SGD guy was looking for. Suddenly, something appeared behind him, startling him and making him realize that it seemed like it was just the back in fear, and was shocked to see a massive, multi-armed monster staring intently at him. The system warned him that an unknown object had, realizing that he was nearly as powerful as an A-rank player, which filled him with envy. He thought to himself, wishing that he could become as opening act, and obviously a decoy. He grabs the doorknob, and when he opens it, he hears Suzuko telling the man that it has been so long, and that he has missed her so much. The man tells Suzuko that he has something to teach her, and that, according to her father's latest research, she is capable of transforming all things. Then, the man presents Suzuko with the whispering flower from the container, and explains that it is a flower with animalistic characteristics. She realizes that he is the boss of the Black Forest, and then the man tells Suzuko that she is missing something, and that, unlike his perfect Suzuko, she is incomplete. The man sighs, thinking that she is an enigma. Suzuko hugs her father and tells him that she will help him, asking if there is anything she can do. Leo thinks that it is a touching scene, but he still wonders why Suzuko transformed. The man thanks Suzuko for helping, and tells her that he needs her power, but tell him if you are unwilling, and he will find someone else. Suzuko tells her father that she is willing, and asks what she needs to do. He replies that he wants something she possesses, something like her eye, which surprises Leo. Suzuko sweetly responds to the man, okay, and then she grabs her eye, causing him to feel pain as well. She gives her eye to her daddy, and tells the man that this way, he doesn't need to ask anyone else for it. She asks him if she is a good girl, while he kneels on the ground in so much pain. The man pats Suzuko's head, and tells her that she is a good girl. She, happy, strong as well, but then he felt his detection ability react, which perplexed him. He sensed a massive presence approaching, so he reported it. Shouts that she is happy to help her daddy, making him yell that they couldn't be serious. The man raised the eye while telling Suzuko to come over. Witnessing the power of his eye, he then dropped the eye onto the whisper flower, and commanded it to consume it. The flower did as he ordered, transforming into a planed monster with a red eye in the center. Suzuko shouted that it had worked, and the man told her that it was all thanks to her. He ran towards them, calling the man a jackal. The man, a jackal, threw a punch to attack him. He shouted that the man was an inhuman monster for using his own son for experiments. He punched the man in the face, but they disappeared, leaving him alone on the ground, in pain. He wondered what was wrong with Suzuko's father, screaming that he was just a criminal, but he was more confused as to why he felt Suzuko's pain. Suddenly, 3 more doors appeared in front of him, and then a multitude of doors surrounded him, surprising him as he watched them multiply. He knew he hadn't touched them, yet they were opening on their own. Afterward, Suzuko's left eye, her left hand, then her heart, her right leg, her left leg, and even her memories were devoured. He laughed maniacally, asking if Suzuko was the feet of a monster. Her feet and hand disappeared because Suzuko's feet and hand had also appeared. He desperately called him Papa, and asked where her dad was because she missed him. Then, the man asked Suzuko how she has been, anxiously told Luca that something formidable was approaching, and that they had to leave quickly. However, Luca responded angrily, questioning how. causing Suzuko to be surprised. She crawls happily towards her daddy, asking if he has come to see her, but the man tells her that he has brought the girl, familiar with him, pointing to the monsters, and says that they are happy to see her. The monsters immediately run towards her and surround her as she tells father that they are all strangers and asks him if he doesn't need her anymore. The man responds that there is no cure and it can't be helped, and that he should forgive Daddy while she is being devoured by the monsters. She screams that it hurts and tells her daddy not to abandon her. Leo laughs and tells Suzuko not to be afraid because it hurts him too. He also tells her that she was deceived by him and that man because they were both fake dads, and that's why he will become her true father. Whisper Flower is shocked to see its roots glowing red, and he calls Whisper Flower ugly, saying that it's good to see it's hideous. Whisper Flower gets angry and asks him how he regained consciousness. Then she tells him that she will show him hell again, but he just mockingly tells her to come and get him, calling her a monster. She furiously attacks him with the eye on her chest once more, taunting him and asking how long. He wonders how long her attitude will last. His eye of truth bleeds in pain, and he feels the hurt, but compared to his succubus's pain, it is nothing. Then he says, it continually synchronizes, and the system shows that the monster devouring skill is activated, but there is a risk of spiritual corruption. Someone like him could detect such things, and asked him to give him a break. Leo was about to explain, when the ground began to crack. Phantom transformation is activating, and triple synchronization with a 60% spiritual corruption rate, depth 5, is activated. He says he's back, and they should stop eating, because if they try to eat Suzuko, he'll eat all of them, and asks if that's fair. Then he jumps towards Suzuko. She is being eaten by the monsters, grabs one of the monster's eyes, and pulls it out. Then he eats it, telling them to let him have a taste too. He eats the monster's body. The other monster sees him and jumps to attack, but he just tells them that they taste like. A moment later, he was back, trapped in the roots of Whisper Flower, while the system showed him that his synchronization rate was 70% with a depth of contamination. The 20-year-old spiritual being told Whisper Flower that she hadn't eaten enough, so she should let him eat more beasts. She asked him if he wanted it so badly that they fell asleep, and he told her that she should enter his memory and die inside. He told Suzuko that she didn't have to be afraid anymore because now he was there. Suzuko felt very hot and asked if he was her father. He replied that he wasn't before, but that he is now. But then, the man with a voice like Whisper Flower told him that he was just a memory. He only told her that he was hurting her. Whisper Flower explained that it was a memory constructed by her willpower. So even if he were to consume it, he would die there and absorb the willpower of the monster. He asked if he believed that a mere human could, causing panic among him and the other players. The ground collapsed, and everyone fell underground. Once underground, Luca angrily grabbed him by the neck and come out unscathed. He also told her that, in a sense, her willpower is poison, and questioned how long he would last. The system showed that her rate of synchronization was at 90% with a spiritual corruption depth of 30, and he told Whisper Flower that he is Suzuko's father and that Suzuko saved him. He also mentioned that his memory is repulsive. Whisper Flower let him go while telling him that he was crazy and asking him what the hell he was, but he gently told her not to be so scared and that she could simply put him to sleep like before. Suddenly, Whisper Flower releases him, leaving him confused, and he asks her why she released him. Then, he sweetly tells her to hurry up and asks if she isn't going to use them, shocking her and causing her to sweat uncontrollably from fear. Still, he tells her to hurry up and let him see that guy because he would kill him thousands of times. Otherwise, he wonders who will share in his master's pain as well as his own. The system indicates that his willpower has overcome the boss, thus achieving the status of servant. Whisper FL lashes out, attempting to strike him while shouting at him to be quiet, and slams him forcefully into the ground. The system then asks if he will keep the sea-level boss. At that moment, she finds herself unable to move due to Leo's overwhelming willpower, causing her to question how he could do it. He explains that his willpower is what made him stronger, and if she refuses to play along, he will select no in the system, adding that he assumed he called him useless, accused him of leading them into a trap, and even threatened to harm him. However, other players yelled at Luca to look at a monster, would want to play with Suze. He then calls for Suzuko. Suzuko awakens and angrily demands to know who did this to her, declaring it unforgivable. But he simply tells her that that's fine, and he can go play with the lady in front of him. Also, if he gets bored, he can eat her. which would make Suzuko happy, and she replies that she would do it. Then Suzuko asks Wesper Flower, who hurt her daddy, and Wesper Flower answers that she wasn't the one who did it. He just asks her if she won't tell on him, and he replies that Leo did it to himself. Suzuko gets angry and yells at him, saying that he's lying. Then she slams Wesper Flower into the ground while shouting that lying is bad. On the other hand, she asks Mickey if he's okay, but Mickey just asks him again what the hell he is. He answers that what he sees is what he is, and that he is the father of a willful daughter. Then he stabs him in the stomach with the sword while telling him that it will hurt, but that he has to endure it, and pulls it out, making her scream in pain. But she immediately immobilizes him and asks if he's going to keep lying about working with that crazy Luca. Then she raises her sword, screaming that she's going to kill him, but he tells her that Luca was the only one who tricked her, so she should believe him. Besides, if he were an enemy, he wouldn't have stopped her wound from bleeding. She's surprised to hear that, and notices that the bleeding from her wound has stopped. He tapped her sword away, while telling her it was only a temporary fix, and that she needed to move her sword first. Panicked, she apologizes to him, and, approaching and drawing his attention, Leo realized that his detection ability had vanished, which made him wonder what was happening. Luca explains that she misunderstood, while Suzuko happily eats the Whisper Flower off to the side. He asked her if she was alright, and if there were any changes in her mind or her body. She replied no, saying that she felt very good. He asked about her work card, mentioning that Luca had taken it. The job, which meant her power had been stolen. She became scared and worriedly asked him what she should do, but he told her there was a way, but that it carried a risk, and if she lent him her strength, he would agree to help her. She agreed and asked him what she needed to do. He couldn't believe she was agreeing so quickly, but she told him that he had helped her and that she trusted him. He, worried, understood her and wondered if Mickey was truly pure or just naive. Then he called for Suzuko, and she immediately crawled towards him. Suzuko, who was chewing something, asked what he wanted, and Mickey fell to the ground, frightened. Feeling intense pressure, he realized that Leo had said he was her dad, which meant that the monster was Leo's daughter. He told Suzuko that he had a request for her, and she replied that she would do whatever he wanted. He asked about the Lady Whisper Flower, and she told him that she had already eaten it. He told her he would give her something tastier, and asked if she could spit the Lady Whisper Flower out for a minute. Suzuko agreed, and unbuttoned her dress. Mickey shyly covered her eyes and told her not to look, but when Suzuko revealed the huge mouth on her belly and said that the Lady Whisper Flower, he pushed him to the ground, acknowledging his impressive feat and mentioning that he would be reprimanded later. The monster stopped as he approached and asked if they wanted to play. Was still there. Mickey was stunned and collapsed to the ground in shock. She told Suzuko that she was a good girl, and Suzuko left the wet Whisper Flower on the floor. He approached Whisper Flower and crouched in front of her, telling Mickey that his request was to annihilate Whisper Flower, but Whisper Flower angrily told them not to take her lightly. She angrily told them not to take her lightly. Suddenly, the monsters growled and came to life, and he shouted that there were too many of them. Suzuko asked if she could eat them, but he said there was no need. Eat them, but he told her there was no need and asked Whisper Flower if she was finished. She shouted that he was underestimating her, and laughing, told him that when he died, he would be joining her. He told her that when he died, he would go with her. Then he told her to keep going and do everything she could to survive. He confidently replied, yes, and showed his power, then released it on the possessed humans and monsters, causing them to stop moving. Mickey shouted excitedly that they had stopped moving. He was about to ask her what she had done, but she was taken aback and asked him what had happened to his face. He frowned, with one eye partially covered, and responded that it was a risk he had taken. Suzuko remarked that his father seemed very cool. He explained to Mickey that spiritual corruption is something that only occurs in high-level dungeons, and naturally, there's a method to reduce the rate of corruption as well. Mickey grabbed his hand and asked worriedly if he was alright. He replied that he was fine, and she stroked his head, telling him that he was like a little brother to her. They wanted to play. One of the players informed Luca that it seemed the time for his mission had arrived, while another asked if it was a boss monster, believes his mental age is higher than Mickey's. He then told Mickey that the Whisper Flower was the solution, even as the Whisper Flower was trying to escape. He explained to Mickey that there are two types of dungeons, quest dungeons and exploration dungeons. Quest members can freely enter and exit exploration dungeons, and the Black Forest is the latter type. Originally, as long as they had a job, they could leave at any time, but because of Luca's actions, the dungeon changed, and the difficulty level increased from F to C. He also told Mickey that Luca brainwashed the members and made them fight because he wanted a bonus and stole her job. But in reality, she knows that Suzuko is the reason the dungeon changed, but she thinks it's better to keep it a secret from Mickey. Suzuko grabbed Wesp Flo and mockingly told him that he couldn't escape. Mickey said that, in other words, Luca's goal in defeating the boss was, it's due to his selfishness. He told Mickey that level bosses drop an item, which is exactly what he needs right now, and she agreed to help. He told her to leave the rest to him. He would leave the rest to her. Mickey greeted Suzuko sweetly and told her that she was going to defeat Wesper Flower, so if she didn't mind, she should let her go down to the lower level, to which Suzuko sweetly agreed, allowing her to go down to Wesper Flower. Then Mickey stabs her, making her shriek in pain, and the system displays that the boss of the Black Forest, Black, has died, and the dungeon is clear. It was also cleared by Asi Miki, but the system indicates that the identification was an error, because she, Monster, the system presented them with their mission: eliminate the unidentified object within a time limit and obtain the hidden treasure of the area, was a non-player, leading him to assume that the system wouldn't recognize Mickey since she was jobless. Then the system shows that the clear was attributed to him, which tells him. It surprises Ito. Mickey tells him that he has defeated him, and Ito thanks him for it. Then, Ito asks if he could keep his identity a secret. Mickey agrees. Now, who asks him this favor, but then asks why he wants to. The system asks if Ito wants to hide his player information, to which he answers yes, and the system tells him that, enter your player ID. The system prompts him to enter his player ID, to which he responds, yes. And then the system begins calculating, and shows that a bonus will be distributed once the calculation is completed. The system tells him that he should grant Mickey's wish first. So, he grabs some Whisper Flower, causing Mickey to become disgusted and ask what he's doing. Ito picks up the small green ball and shouts that it is the boss's item, a sprite-type monster core. Mickey asks her how she uses it, and when she denies ingesting it in a creepy way, he says she's right, which makes her sweat nervously. He asks if she's joking. She's about to tell him that he's asking for too much, but then she coughs up blood, causing him to scream her name in concern. Suzuko asks him if that person is dead, and if she can eat them, to which he replies no. Then he asks Mickey if she's okay, and she responds. She says that she can't feel her arms or legs. She asks him if she's going to die, but he tells her that everything is alright and that he's going to help her. He uses his power on the sprite-type core, been detected within the game, and its species, abilities, level, and identity were all unknown. This encounter would change Leo's destiny. Cladas Haven was a game, uninhabitable. Again, in Anmeni, Luca unleashed his powerful fire magic and confidently told the monster that he would reduce it to ashes. However, Leo, Sprite Core, while telling Mickey to hold on. Then, he puts the core in her mouth, telling her that he won't let her die. Mickey swallows it, and he realizes, which is working because the elemental power around him is accumulating. He knows that, among the different types of cores, gold ones are valued at more than 2 million, and by eliminating the boss's willpower, they can acquire pure elemental power. In the past, there were serious conflicts over these objects, but then he notices Mickey's reaction, leading him to wonder if Mickey is being controlled by the elemental power. Instead, Mickey suddenly unleashes a powerful force, sending him flying, but fortunately, Suzuko catches him just in time. She angrily tells him that Mickey did something horrible to her father, which is unforgivable. Then Suzuko asks him if she can eat Mickey, but he reminds her that she promised not to eat people. Suzuko tells him, creepily, but being very kind, he asks her what they should do. He notices that Suzuko's aura is different than before, and wonders if it's because of the changes in her body. He thinks Suzuko might even eat him if he gives the wrong answer. He asks Suzuko if she becomes dangerous, and if she will protect him. He knows that, if anything, he needs to calm Suzuko down. She replies that she would protect her papa. He knows that Suzuko's problem will have to wait, and he wonders how. He should wake up Mickey. He considers asking Suzuko, but decides against it, knowing that Suzuko is a boss, and it's too dangerous. So he uses his. He was stunned to see the monster suddenly vanish, leaving the other players wondering if Luca had defeated it. Luca assumed that it power instead, but it's no use because Mickey is too far away for his power to reach her. He also knows that, at this rate, Mickey's body won't. It will last. And on top of that, the side effect is getting worse. He realizes that he will have to depend on his Suzuko after all. Then he tells Suzuko to lend a hand, and she asks what she should do. He responds that he wants her to throw it at Mickey, and she answers excitedly, okay. She grabs him and swings back, causing him to tell her to go slowly, but she throws him forcefully while yelling at him to fly. He tells her that she wasn't slow, but that she did well. He then forcibly entered Mickey's barrier and knocked her to the ground with him. He shook her and called her name to wake her up, but when she didn't move, he slapped her across the face in such a rough manner, making her step back and ask what had happened. He was glad that he finally relieved her. He woke up and told her that she was about to become a real plant person. He looked timidly at her ruined clothes and told her not to look at her. He told her that nothing was happening and that he didn't see anything. She asked him if his hand had been corrupted by the progress of the spiritual energy and if he was okay, but suddenly, Suzuko jumped at Mickey, calling her an evil woman and telling her not to forgive her. He told Suzuko to leave him alone because Mickey was his father's friend, and that it was the path he had chosen, so she didn't have to worry. Then, he threw the letter to Mickey, and she caught it by surprise, knowing that it was the letter. He must have been nearby and urged everyone to remain alert. Unbeknownst to him, the monster reappeared behind them and attacked, playfully uttering from his jaw. He told her that she could use it now and that he was already leaving, but to keep it a secret. Then he left with Suzuko, leaving Mickey. He was surprised and told him that he should at least tell him his name, since Iman was just his nickname. He was surprised to hear that and peeked out. Mickey then asked if his alias was Hi, if keeping the secret was for Suzuko's sake. He then told him that he even accepted spiritual corruption for Suzuko, and asked if he was even human anymore, or if he was a monster. He replied that he also wanted to know the answer, and asked Mickey for his opinion. Then Suzuko shouted to Mickey that her father was her father, which left her confused. He continued walking away with Suzuko, while telling Mickey that his name was Leo, and that the next time they met, he should be careful around him. Mickey agreed, and replied that he understood. Meanwhile, outside, the system displayed the completion of the level F dungeon, with a difficulty level of C. The elapsed time was only 23 minutes, which amazed the viewers online. On the internet, people shared videos of the Black Forest's disappearance, and in the conversation, someone mentioned that the ranking of the best players had been updated. Another person asked for the ID, and the system revealed that the top-ranked player was called Keeper, 10 hours after the disappearance of the ID. Black Forest. In a subway car garage, a horde of monsters emerged, and one of them exclaimed that they had arrived too late. The Toad leader headed Meme. One of the players encouraged the group not to back down, assuring them that it was nothing special, and the players commenced their attacks. However, the monster, to the group, and noted that he suspected the dungeon had been cleared, but Wesper Flower's corpse was unusually clean. It seemed like a deliberate act to him. Repilica Rend observed that there was no core or hole in Wesper Flower's chest, indicating that their killer was familiar with the vital points. The sprite-type monsters. The woman in the center informed the group that their Apparition Association had lost one of its members. Boner Rend expressed his condolences, and Tuad reminded him not to speak ill of the deceased, since she was one of them. Fellman of the Apparition Association wondered who could have committed the act and mentioned that Whisper Flower was the closest to the god of the Mon monsters, their guide and leader. Then he asked Chell if he could recreate images from before Wesper Flower's death. Chell assured her that he would do anything for her and activated a red light in his eye, revealing a vision in the sky showed Leo asking Wesper Flower why he was letting her go, mockingly urging him to hurry up because they wanted to see the god of monsters, so they witnessed Flor Susuro calling Leo a monster before perishing. Bonin couldn't believe that Flor Susuro was nothing for a human child, and furiously asked who dared to insult the Great One. He was about to curse, but then they heard Suzuko ask Leo who had hurt him. Fellman asked for an explanation, wondering why the first-generation monster, the Queen of Destruction, was referring to quickly captured several players with its numerous hands and asked them if they wanted to play a game. He then threw the captured players to the ground, man, as daddy. A monster asked if the human was staying with the Queen, but Fellman dismissed the idea, suggesting that they were talking about the Queen of Destruction and wondered if the human was a being superior to her. Fellman exclaimed that the Master of Mirkwood and the Queen of Destruction were practically gods among the monsters, and that the leader they had been searching for had finally emerged, as the dungeon survivors needed a monster like he. Von Rendage Jugad was surprised by Fellman's power. She became so frustrated that she lost her composure and declared that they had to establish contact with that man, since he could be an incarnation of the Great One. He called Ad, observing that she seemed the most human, and asked her to approach the man, and Discernativa entrusted Dahl with this task, to which Dahl respectfully responded that it would be an honor, addressing Fellman as Ego, which means older sister. Meanwhile, in the city of Heterin, at a workers' cooperative, the players were discussing the information regarding Keeper's 24-hour speed run, and they marveled at this achievement, wondering if Keeper could be a burr chaser, and whether a burr chaser could even clear a mutated dungeon alone. One of the men mentioned that even for a bear chaser, it would be quite a challenge, and expressed his desire to obtain more information. Mickey found the unusual identification of Keeper, who cleared the dungeon at full speed in 24 hours, quite strange. Then, a lady called Mickey, introducing herself as Jenny from the Rust. Simultaneously, in an exuberant and mocking manner, Leo couldn't believe it had taken their lives so easily and realized there was no information available about it. Cooperative, and mentioned that she had something to discuss with Mickey related to the Black Forest, as Mickey had recently emerged from it. Mickey informed. Janae said that he had already reported everything related to the Black Forest. However, Janae clarified that his question was specifically about the player called Keeper, which, this caused Mickey to be squeezed. Leo believed that information about whoever cleared a dungeon would attract a lot of attention, and he realized that he had predicted things would turn out this way. A mysterious boy, accompanied by a monster, had confided in him his secret in order to hide the existence of Suzuko. Later, in an abandoned building, Leo decided to rest in the abandoned hotel for the moment. He wondered if there had been any change in his status, so he opened his status window and saw that he had suddenly reached level 5. However, his profession was still at level F, which led him to consider spiritual corruption as a mere nuisance. Then, the system granted him a distinct bonus called a mimic crystal at level C, which was, the system explained that by using his strong willpower, he could switch to ranged attack or defense forms. He gazed in astonishment at the mimic crystal. As he was transforming, he had never witnessed anything like it, but he expected such uniqueness from an item like this. He decided to save the bonus for later, because he needed to address another matter first. He knew that the impure eye he had obtained during the fight contained Suzuko's memories, so he called about this monster, leaving him baffled about what was happening. Suddenly, the monster slammed its hands down near Leo, throwing him. Suzuko, who emerged from her hiding place, and asked him why. In a gentle tone, he informed her that he had a gift for her and asked her to come closer. He then released his power flowed through his hand as he touched her, placing it upon her and telling her that she was now complete. Suddenly, she felt something in her body and screamed, describing the sensation. The stranger was surprised by his powerful presence, but then he realized that he wasn't the father from Suzuko's memories, which made him wonder if Suzuko no longer saw him as her father. She held the mimic crystal, which had transformed into a weapon, just in case. Suzuko lunged toward him, grabbing him by the hand in the process. Surprisingly, however, she hugged him and told him that she loved him, assuring him that his worries were unfounded. He gently pushed her away and suggested that she left him on the ground. Once she did, he proposed that they check how her condition had changed, which filled her with joy. They realized that her level had leveled up, and the corrupted zombie had transformed into a monster-level being. However, he suddenly felt an intense pain in his arm, causing 4-4. He wondered if kneeling on the ground was due to using his great willpower, but he remembered having it under control before. Finally, the pain became unbearable, and he passed out, leaving Suzuko worried. She called him, but he was in too much pain and ended up falling asleep for too long. He got up and realized he was injured. She laid him on the bed and apologized for not being able to protect him, worriedly telling him to recover. Into the air, and crashing him hard against the wall. As he fell to the ground, he was shocked to see the monster standing in front of him. The monster said it smelled. Soon, she remembered to ask her father what he was doing. The man replied that he was thinking of creating a utopia. She asked what a utopia is. The man's figure slowly came back to life, and he saw Leo telling him that it was a place where everyone could live happily, a place full of hope, now reduced to nothing. A small figure took Leo's hand and hugged him, saying that he remembered now. He sweetly said that his dad is his dad, and Suzuko is Suzuko. A moment later, he slowly regained consciousness and opened his eyes, sitting up while holding his head in pain, realizing that he was alive. Then, he remembered that the pain from the spiritual corruption had made him faint the day before. Suddenly, he saw Suzuko with a different expression, asking him if he was already okay. Well, this surprised him, and he wondered what was happening. She approached him, calling him by his name, and his vision adjusted, revealing that it was a single. The person, however, felt his hand worsening and began experiencing hallucinations. He knew he had to control it to avoid problems, so he focused on controlling his willpower. Relieved that it had decreased for now, he remembered that he had used this method to refine his detection skill. Before, and surprisingly, he could use it to keep his willpower under control. Something familiar, and addressed Leo as Dad, asking him if he was his father. This left Leo dumbfounded, as he wondered how he could possibly have such a giant daughter. Giant. He realized that none of this made any sense, especially when the monster advised him to stay calm. Leo considered that maybe there was a way, released 10 years prior, and has now merged with the real world, essentially becoming a dungeon. Dungeons have begun appearing all over the world, and, to get out of this predicament, the monster complied, lifting its clothes to reveal a large mouth on its belly, and suggested they go home, while screaming. Excited that she was going home with her daddy, Leo wondered how he had gotten to that point. As the monster grabbed him, laughing, he yelled at it to get away and listen to his dad. However, it still threw him into its enormous mouth, making him wonder if this was how he would meet his end, and believing it was the worst way to die. Then, the system congratulated him for unlocking his hidden job class as a guardian of terror, similar to that of a zoo or aquarium worker. Moments later, he slowly opened his eyes and examined his hand, realizing that he had not been eaten. He looked around, wondering if he was back home. The television reporter announced that it was January 30th of the year 210, and that the time was 4 p.m. Hours later, Leo understood the meaning of the date and time, realizing that there were only 5 hours left until the arrival of Heavenly Paradise. He wondered if he had somehow traveled 10 years back in time, and if he possessed the ability to rebuild his life should he die. Encouraged, and believing that his prayers had been heard and that his new life was beginning, he was too absorbed in his thoughts to notice something appearing behind him. Some hands slowly emerged, and the monster from before addressed him as Dad, causing him to fall to the ground in shock. The monster mentioned that its belly was monsters, and the survivors of these dungeons are now known as players. 2 hours ago, in an uninhabitable area called No Ecumene, a man, empty, leaving Leo perplexed and anxious about what was happening. It looked at him hungrily, making him sweat with fear as he dreaded being devoured again. He reached out, grabbed it, and licked it, asking about dinner and introducing himself as her Suo. He explained that he was hungry and asked for food because she was hungry, so he hurried to get something, assuring her that he would prepare something for her to eat, to which she sweetly agreed. Shortly after, she asked him what it was, noticing many cubes of chicken. He told her that it was all for her. She hugged him happily and expressed her love, leaving him wondering if it was a dream or something like that. Then, she picked up a piece of chicken, took a bite, and chewed it happily, commenting on how delicious it was. She continued eating while he was busy accessing the system, thinking that feeding her might satiate her hunger. When he checked her status, he was surprised to see that she had a job called Guardian of Terror. Realized it was a one-time opportunity and wondered if Suzuko was the reason he had awakened. The system informed him that Suzuko was a rank B boss, described as a corrupted zombie-type monster being kept, and her current state was imperfect and ravenous. The system then explained the maintained monster's ability, predation, stating that consuming a monster had a 30% chance of acquiring that monster's abilities. He contemplated what might happen if Suzuko's condition were to become complete, and whether he could also control other bosses through her. The system issued he yelled at them not to slack off if they wanted their bonus. He ordered Leo, a man with glasses, to quicken his pace, to which Leo tiredly replied, "Yes." One of the noticed that Suzuko had entered starvation mode with a hunger level at only 50%. In this state, she would consume any being. "I live without distinguishing between friend or foe." Suzuko hugged him sweetly and called him Dad. The system revealed that she was in a state of constant hunger, persistent, and asked what she could eat because she was still hungry. He thought only 5 minutes had passed and wondered if normal food would be enough to satisfy her. He patted her head, acknowledging that he needed to keep her in a good mood for the time being. He told her gently that sometimes it was necessary to be patient, and that he would let her eat as much as she wanted. He thought about acting like a loving father, completing Suzuko's status, and how clearing the dungeons would be much easier. He imagined those who had looked down on him in the past feeling ashamed. He couldn't believe it. His father patted him, which left him slightly confused. Nevertheless, she grabbed him tightly, expressing her happiness and promising to be a good girl. Her grip was so strong that he started bleeding, and he asked her to put him down. Suddenly, the television reporter announced that something was happening. Just in time, startling them both, the television began to show static, and he exclaimed that it couldn't be. He looked out the window, scared, and realized that the advent of the dungeon had occurred sooner than expected. He couldn't believe it, and watched as a green light emerged from the ground, and the The men asked their friend why they were bringing the unemployed and inexperienced Leo in their group, and the friend responded that apparently Leo had experience escaping, reached all the way to the sky. He recognized the scene as the Black Forest dungeon. Suddenly, something emerged from underground, a monstrous creature with many eyes. Appearing before him, he fell to the ground screaming in fear, and the system warned him that the Black Forest had manifested. He stood there, shocked, staring at it. Suzuko then appeared at his side, shouting that the creature was a pest, and angrily told it to leave. The creature quickly disappeared, and the system indicated that he had been released from the eyeball. Then, Suzuko playfully picked him up, exclaiming that her daddy was hers, and he yelled at her to put him down. She obeyed and asked him if it was time to eat. He told her that he would prepare something soon, wondering what was going on. Then he felt a painful sensation in his head, and the system warned him that the strange, guarded monster had been detected and the curse of the Black Forest had been activated. Once activated, the Black Forest's level increased, and Suso looked at him with concern. He wondered what the curse meant, and the system revealed that if the Black Forest wasn't cleared within 72 hours, he would be permanently confined within it. Suddenly, something emerged from underground, and tree-like monsters appeared. He growled at them. However, Suzuko exclaimed that they were food, which puzzled him. He shouted excitedly that they looked tasty. Suzuko jumped towards the monsters and started grabbing them one by one with his hands. He put one of the monsters in his mouth, and the system showed Leo that, from No Ecumene. Leo overheard the conversation and got angry. The unique No Ecumene dungeon has spread throughout the city, centered on Sakurada Hospital. He gained experience points, and Suzuko's hunger level increased. He had consumed a tree yokai named Kyo, and acquired the skill, Conversion. Wild, with a duration of 20 minutes, Suzuko excitedly exclaimed that they were super delicious, and picked up another piece from the ground. Leo realized that he could satisfy his hunger by eating monsters, and the system showed that his hunger level had completely recovered. He knew that he had to take care of the curse, something he had not encountered before. He remembered that he was supposed to be in the non-community of Sakurada City, not in the Black Forest of Naru. The difference was that Suzuko was there with him. Suzuko asked him if he wanted some, but he refused, suggesting that she eat it instead. Leo began to wonder if the dungeon intended to eliminate its suo, which meant it intended to eliminate its owner, him, through the curse. He realized that within 72, he had hours to escape or potentially clear the dungeon, but he wondered how he and Suzuko could face the vast forest while contemplating. He didn't notice the ground near him suddenly breaking apart. He heard a sound and was startled to see numerous Quillos surrounding him. Suzuko called out anxiously and used her wild conversion ability to repel the Quillo charging at him. She grabbed him and a Quillo, expressing her concern for his well-being. He assured her that he was fine and congratulated her on doing such a good job. However, he realized that